Most countries seize weapons, drugs, or endangered animals at their borders. North Korea seizes chocolate bars, romance novels, and anything that might suggest life could be better elsewhere. Fun. In 2015, North Korean border guards executed a man caught smuggling South Korean soap operas on USB drives across the Chinese border. The man, whose name was never publicly released, was part of an underground network smuggling South Korean entertainment into North Korea. He was caught at the border carrying 50 USB drives loaded with popular Korean dramas, including Crash Landing on You, ironically about a South Korean heiress who accidentally lands in North Korea. Border guards didn't just seize the USB drives. They arrested the smuggler, investigated everyone he'd sold to, and publicly executed him as a warning to others. North Korean authorities consider South Korean media poison that corrupts citizens' minds by showing them that South Koreans live in prosperity while North Koreans starve. The USB drives weren't dangerous weapons or drugs. They contained television shows. But to the Kim regime, showing North Koreans that their southern neighbors live freely and prosperously is more dangerous than any weapon. The execution for television shows demonstrated the regime's terror of its citizens learning about the outside world. 2. In 2018, customs officials at Pyongyang Airport detained a Chinese tourist for 3 days because he was carrying a copy of the Michelin Guide to Seoul. The tourist, Liu Wei, had visited South Korea before coming to North Korea and forgot to remove the guidebook from his luggage. North Korean customs considered the book propaganda because it showed restaurants, hotels, and attractions in prosperous Seoul. Liu was interrogated about why he had the book, whether he was a spy, and whether he planned to show it to North Korean citizens. The guidebook was confiscated and destroyed. Liu was eventually released but banned from ever returning to North Korea. The Michelin Guide, essentially a restaurant and hotel directory, was treated as dangerous contraband because it depicted South Korean prosperity and freedom. North Korean authorities couldn't allow even a tourist guidebook that showed life was better just across the DMZ. 3. In 2013, a North Korean woman was sent to a labor camp for 2 years after border guards found a single Choco Pie in her bag while returning from China. Choco Pies are chocolate-covered marshmallow snacks popular in South Korea that became symbols of capitalism and freedom in North Korea. The woman had received the Choco Pie as a gift from relatives in China. Border guards considered it contraband because Choco Pies are associated with South Korean culture and capitalism. The woman tried to explain it was just a snack, but North Korean law treats South Korean products as enemy goods. She was sentenced to 2 years of hard labor for possessing a single chocolate snack. The Choco Pie was seized and likely destroyed or given to border guards as a spoil of war against capitalism. The case demonstrated the regime's paranoia about even food items from South Korea, treating a chocolate snack as dangerous propaganda that could corrupt citizens. 4. In 2016, border guards at the Chinese-North Korean border seized and destroyed over 10,000 Bibles being smuggled by Christian missionaries. The Bibles were hidden in bags of rice and other food shipments. North Korean authorities consider Christianity a threat to the Kim family's cult of personality. Citizens are supposed to worship the Kims, not God. The missionaries attempting the smuggling were Chinese nationals who were arrested, interrogated, and eventually released back to China. However, any North Korean who received Bibles from previous shipments faced execution or lifetime imprisonment in political prison camps. North Korea considers Bible ownership a political crime, punishable by death. The regime has executed people for owning Bibles, conducting Christian worship, or even praying. The 10,000 Bibles weren't weapons. They were books of religious text. But to North Korea's government, the idea that citizens might worship something other than the Kim family is more threatening than armed rebellion. 5. In 2019, a defector trying to escape North Korea into China was caught at the border, carrying a USB drive containing downloaded Wikipedia articles about world history. The defector, a university student whose name remains protected, had spent months using illegal internet access to download Wikipedia articles onto a USB drive. He hoped to use the information to understand the outside world once he escaped. Border guards discovered the USB drive during a search. The Wikipedia articles covered topics like democracy, human rights, the Korean War's true history, and world economics. All information that contradicts North Korean propaganda. The student was arrested and sent to a political prison camp, where defectors report he likely died within a year from starvation and abuse. His USB drive containing encyclopedia articles was seized as evidence of anti-state activities. The regime considered basic historical and political information so dangerous that possessing it justified life imprisonment. The student's crime was wanting to learn the truth. 6. In 2014, customs at Pyongyang airport confiscated a tourist's iPod because it contained a playlist that included Gangnam Style by South Korean artist PSY. The Japanese tourist had forgotten the song was on his device. North Korean customs officials scan electronic devices for banned content, and South Korean music is strictly forbidden. The tourist was questioned for hours about how he obtained the song, whether he planned to share it with North Koreans, and whether he was part of a psychological warfare campaign. The iPod was confiscated and never returned. The tourist was allowed to leave but warned never to return. Gangnam Style, a silly pop song about an affluent Seoul neighborhood, was treated as dangerous propaganda because it depicted South Korean wealth and culture. The song's global popularity made North Korean authorities particularly hostile to it, viewing it as proof that the world admires South Korea while ignoring North Korea. 7. In 2017, a North Korean trader returning from China was arrested at the border for possessing a Chinese yuan note that had writing on it. Someone had written "Freedom for North Korea" in Korean on the bill before it circulated. Border guards discovered the bill during a routine currency inspection. The trader claimed he didn't know about the writing and had simply received the bill as change in China. North Korean authorities didn't believe him and charged him with possessing anti-state propaganda. He was sentenced to 1 year in a labor camp. The yuan note was seized as evidence. North Korea's extreme paranoia means even currency with political messages becomes contraband worthy of imprisonment. The trader's life was destroyed over a bill someone else had written on that he'd innocently received as change. The regime's control is so absolute that even money becomes dangerous if it carries the wrong message. 8. In 2015, border guards seized a shipment of winter coats being smuggled from China because they had the North Face brand labels. North Korea bans certain Western brand names, and the North Face is specifically prohibited because of the word North. Authorities worry it could be mocking North Korea or suggesting the North Korea, needs face respect. The coats were desperately needed. It was winter and many North Koreans lack adequate winter clothing. But the brand name made them contraband. The entire shipment was confiscated and the smuggler was arrested. Some border guards reportedly kept the coats for themselves after removing the offensive labels. Desperate North Koreans were denied warm winter coats because of paranoia about a brand name. The regime's control extends even to which corporate logos citizens can see, treating outdoor apparel as ideological threat. 9. In 2018, a woman defecting to South Korea through China was caught at the North Korean border carrying a smartphone loaded with photos of South Korean food she'd seen online. The woman had been planning her defection for months and had saved images of South Korean restaurants and dishes as motivation. Border guards discovered the phone during inspection. The photos showed bulgogi, bibimbap, fried chicken, and cafe desserts, ordinary South Korean food that looked extravagant compared to North Korean rations. The woman was arrested and charged with consuming enemy propaganda and preparing to defect. She was sent to a labor camp and the phone was seized. The photos of food were treated as evidence of ideological corruption. Mere images of South Korean meals were considered dangerous because they revealed that South Koreans eat well, while many North Koreans are malnourished. The regime couldn't allow citizens to see that food abundance exists just across the border. 10. In 2013, customs officials at Pyongyang airport detained an American academic for bringing in 2 books about North Korean economics, written by Western scholars. The professor was visiting North Korea as part of an approved academic exchange. The books were scholarly analyses of North Korea's economy, not propaganda or criticism. But North Korean authorities considered any outside analysis of their country to be hostile propaganda. The professor was interrogated about why he had the books and what he planned to do with them in North Korea. The books were confiscated, and he was expelled from the country immediately. His academic visa was revoked, and he was banned from returning. Books analyzing North Korean economics from Western perspective were treated as contraband, more dangerous than weapons. The regime cannot tolerate any outside analysis of their failures, even academic scholarship, because it might contradict their propaganda narrative. 11. In 2016, border guards executed a North Korean official caught smuggling instant ramen from South Korea. The official worked in trade and had access to Chinese markets where South Korean products were available. He'd been buying South Korean instant noodles, specifically Shin Ramyun, and bringing them back to sell in North Korea's black markets at huge markup. Border guards discovered a box containing 200 packets of the ramen during inspection. Rather than just confiscating the noodles, authorities arrested the official and investigated his smuggling operation. He was found guilty of distributing South Korean luxury goods that undermined loyalty to the regime. He was publicly executed, and his family was sent to a political prison camp. 200 packets of instant noodles led to an execution and destroyed an entire family. The ramen wasn't poisoned or dangerous. It was just better quality than North Korean noodles, which made it ideologically threatening. 12. In 2019, a defector attempting to escape through the Tumen River into China was caught carrying a small notebook where she'd written her dreams about life in South Korea. The teenage girl had spent years writing about the life she hoped to have after escaping, learning English, attending university, eating whenever she wanted, and seeing the ocean. Border guards found her during the escape attempt and discovered the notebook. The writings about freedom, education, and South Korea were used as evidence of treasonous intentions. She was sent to a youth labor camp and the notebook was seized. Her own private dreams, written for no one but herself, were treated as anti-state propaganda. North Korea criminalizes not just actions but thoughts and dreams of freedom. The girl's notebook revealed she dreamed of the basic freedoms most people take for granted, which to North Korean authorities proved her ideological corruption, warranting punishment. 13. In 2014, customs at the Chinese border seized a shipment of sanitary pads with Korean writing on the packaging. The pads were medical necessity items being smuggled to address North Korea's shortage of feminine hygiene products. But because the packaging had Korean writing from South Korea, they were classified as enemy goods. The entire shipment was confiscated despite women in North Korea often resorting to using unsanitary cloth, repeatedly due to lack of proper menstrual products. Border guards destroyed the sanitary pads and arrested the smuggler. North Korean women's health needs were subordinated to the regime's paranoia about any products from South Korea. The seizure revealed the regime cares more about controlling what brands citizens use than addressing basic health needs. Sanitary pads, essential health products, were treated as ideological contraband because of where they came from. 14. In 2017, a tourist from Singapore was detained for 3 days because customs found a single issue of The Economist magazine in his luggage. The magazine contained an article analyzing North Korea's nuclear program and economic challenges. North Korean authorities consider any foreign news coverage of their country to be false propaganda. The tourist was questioned extensively about whether he was a journalist, spy, or propagandist. The magazine was confiscated and destroyed. The tourist was eventually released, but only after signing a confession, admitting he'd attempted to bring hostile propaganda into the country. A news magazine discussing global economics and politics was treated as dangerous contraband. The regime cannot allow citizens to read outside analysis of North Korea because it contradicts state propaganda about the country being a paradise. 15. In 2015, border guards arrested a woman returning from China because she had a Chinese-made bra with decorative writing that said "freedom" in English. The woman had purchased the bra in a Chinese market without understanding the English word. Border guards discovered it during a routine search that required women to undress. The word "freedom" on any item is strictly forbidden in North Korea. The woman was arrested despite her illiteracy in English and obvious lack of political intent. She spent 6 months in a labor camp for wearing underwear with the wrong word on it. The bra was seized as evidence of ideological corruption. North Korea's control is so absolute that even the words on undergarments can lead to imprisonment. The woman's punishment for wearing the wrong underwear revealed the regime's paranoia extends to private clothing choices no one but she would see. 16. In 2018, customs officials seized a DVD collection from a defector because one disc case featured the South Korean flag. The DVDs actually contained Chinese movies, but one case had accidentally been printed with a small South Korean flag in the background of the cover art. The defector hadn't even noticed the flag. Border guards spotted it immediately during inspection. The defector was detained and investigated for anti-state sympathies. The entire DVD collection was confiscated. The defector was released after days of interrogation, but placed under surveillance. A tiny South Korean flag accidentally printed on a disc case for Chinese movies was treated as evidence of enemy sympathy. North Korea's propaganda requires such complete control that even accidental exposure to South Korean symbols triggers punishment. 17. In 2013, border guards executed a North Korean man caught with a transistor radio that could receive South Korean broadcasts. The man was a farmer who'd purchased the modified radio in China, hoping to listen to news and entertainment from South Korea. North Korean radios are preset to only receive state propaganda broadcasts. Owning a radio that can access outside broadcasts is a serious crime. Border guards discovered the radio during a random search. They tested it and found it could receive South Korean frequencies. The man was arrested, tried for treason, and publicly executed as a warning. His family was sent to a political prison camp. A radio, a simple electronic device for listening to broadcasts, led to an execution and destroyed a family. The regime considers outside information so threatening that possessing the means to hear it warrants death. The execution for a radio demonstrated that knowledge of the outside world is North Korea's most forbidden contraband. 18. In 2016, a Chinese businessman was detained at Pyongyang airport because customs found aspirin in his luggage. North Korea restricts medicine imports, partly to control what citizens can access, and partly to maintain the pretense that North Korean medicine is adequate. The businessman had brought aspirin for personal use during his trip. Customs officials confiscated the aspirin and interrogated him about whether he planned to sell it or give it to North Koreans. Foreign medicine is sometimes seen as propaganda suggesting Western Chinese medicine is better than North Korean products. The businessman was released after hours of questioning, but the aspirin was permanently confiscated. Simple over-the-counter pain reliever was treated as potentially subversive contraband. The regime's paranoia about foreign medicine reveals insecurity about North Korea's healthcare failures. 19. In 2019, border guards arrested a woman attempting to defect because she was carrying a USB drive with Korean language subtitled Hollywood movies. The woman had spent months collecting movies to understand Western culture. The USB contained films like The Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump, and The Sound of Music, classic films with themes of freedom, perseverance, and hope. North Korean authorities consider Hollywood films dangerous propaganda, showing Western prosperity and values. The woman was caught at the border and the USB was seized. She was charged with consuming enemy propaganda and attempting to defect. She was sent to a political prison camp where the conditions are notoriously deadly. The movies on her USB drive weren't pornography or violence. They were acclaimed films that billions globally have watched freely. But to North Korea, stories celebrating individual freedom and showing Western life are more dangerous than actual weapons. 20. In 2014, customs at the border seized a shipment of ballpoint pens because they had "Made in South Korea" printed on them in tiny letters. The pens were functional writing implements desperately needed in North Korean schools, where supplies are scarce. But the country of origin marking made them enemy goods. The entire shipment of 10,000 pens was confiscated and destroyed. North Korean students remained without adequate writing supplies because the available pens came from the wrong Korea. The smuggler was arrested for importing enemy goods. The regime's control extends to refusing pens because they acknowledge South Korea's existence as a manufacturing country. North Korean children's education was harmed because pens had the wrong manufacturing origin printed in tiny letters. 21. In 2017, a defector escaping to China was caught at the border carrying a chocolate bar wrapper from a Hershey's chocolate she'd eaten. She'd kept the wrapper as a memento, planning to show family in China. Border guards found the wrapper during a search. In North Korea, American products are strictly forbidden, and possessing them is considered evidence of ideological corruption. The woman was arrested, and the chocolate wrapper was seized as evidence. She was interrogated about how she obtained American chocolate and who gave it to her. She spent months in detention and was released only after intense international pressure when her case became publicized. An empty chocolate wrapper, literal trash, was treated as evidence of treason. The regime's paranoia means even candy wrappers from enemy nations are dangerous contraband. 22. In 2015, border officials seized a tourist camera memory card because it contained photos of poor areas in Pyongyang. The European photographer had been on an approved tour but had photographed some rundown buildings and people who looked undernourished. North Korea only allows tourists to photograph approved subjects that show the country positively. Border guards reviewed the photographer's images during departure and found the unauthorized photos. The entire memory card was confiscated, hundreds of approved photos deleted along with the problematic ones. The photographer was detained overnight and questioned about whether he was a spy gathering intelligence. He was eventually allowed to leave but banned from returning. Photos showing North Korea's poverty were treated as stolen state secrets. The regime cannot allow evidence of its failures to leave the country, even tourists' vacation photos. 23. In 2018, customs officials at Pyongyang Airport confiscated a tablet computer from a European diplomat because it had Wikipedia app installed. Even though the diplomat had no internet connectivity in North Korea to access Wikipedia, having the app was considered possession of enemy information source. The tablet was seized, and the diplomat was given a lecture about respecting North Korean law. The tablet was eventually returned after the Wikipedia app was deleted. North Korean authorities consider Wikipedia dangerous propaganda because it contains information about North Korea's human rights abuses, the Kim family's excesses, and history that contradicts state propaganda. The mere capability to access encyclopedic knowledge, even without internet, was treated as threat. The diplomat's incident revealed that educational resources the rest of the world takes for granted are contraband in North Korea. 24. In 2013, border guards executed a woman caught smuggling Chinese cell phones into North Korea. The woman was part of a network providing North Koreans with modified Chinese phones that could illegally connect to Chinese cell towers near the border. These phones allowed North Koreans to call relatives in China or South Korea, access outside information, and coordinate defections. Border guards discovered her carrying 20 phones hidden in her clothing. She was arrested, and her entire network was investigated. Many of her customers were also arrested. The woman was publicly executed, and the cell phones were destroyed. Her crime was providing communication devices that let North Koreans contact the outside world. To the regime, nothing is more dangerous than citizens having unmonitored communication with people outside North Korea. The execution for smuggling phones demonstrated that connectivity and information flow are existential threats to the regime's control. 25. In 2016, a Chinese trader was detained because customs found packages of instant coffee with English writing on them. North Korea restricts coffee as a luxury item associated with Western capitalism. The instant coffee packages had English brand names and marketing text, making them doubly problematic. The trader claimed the coffee was for personal consumption during his business trip. North Korean authorities confiscated the coffee and detained the trader for investigation. He was released after several days but told never to bring Western products again. Instant coffee, one of the world's most common beverages, was treated as capitalist propaganda because of its association with Western business culture. The regime's control extends to what hot beverages people can drink if those beverages come from enemy economies. 26. In 2019, border guards arrested a man attempting to defect because he carried a handwritten list of South Korean TV shows he wanted to watch after escaping. The man had spent years hearing rumors about South Korean dramas from people who'd secretly watched smuggled content. He'd written down titles he wanted to find after reaching freedom. Border guards caught him trying to cross the Tumen River and found the list. The handwritten show titles were used as evidence of ideological corruption and intent to consume enemy propaganda. He was sent to a labor camp for possessing a list of television shows. Not the shows themselves, a list of their titles. The regime criminalizes even the intention to consume outside media. The man's dreams of watching TV shows that billions freely access led to his imprisonment. 27. In 2014, customs at Pyongyang Airport confiscated an American academic's laptop because it contained academic papers about North Korea written by defectors. The professor was a Korea scholar who'd collected defector testimonies and accounts about life in North Korea. North Korean authorities consider defector testimonies to be false propaganda, regardless of their content. The laptop was seized, examined for all its contents, and never returned. The professor was expelled from the country and banned from returning. His research materials, primary source accounts from people who'd lived in North Korea, were treated as enemy propaganda because they contradicted state narrative. The regime cannot allow scholars to document reality if reality exposes the government's lies. Academic research based on first-hand accounts was confiscated as contraband more dangerous than weapons. 28. In 2017, border guards seized a shipment of children's books from China because they contained maps showing North and South Korea as separate countries. The books were educational materials for children showing world geography. North Korean ideology claims South Korea is illegally occupied Korean territory awaiting reunification under Kim family rule. Maps showing two separate Koreas contradict this narrative. The entire book shipment was confiscated and destroyed. The smuggler was arrested for attempting to import ideologically incorrect materials. North Korean children were denied educational books because accurate maps challenged propaganda. The regime cannot allow its citizens to see geographic reality that contradicts ideological claims, even in children's books. Maps showing truth were treated as dangerous propaganda, requiring seizure and destruction. 29. In 2015, a woman returning from China was arrested at the border because she had fashion magazines showing South Korean models. The magazines were Chinese publications but featured South Korean fashion industry content. Border guards considered the magazines problematic because they showed South Korean prosperity, fashion, and beauty standards different from North Korean propaganda. The woman claimed she just liked looking at the clothes and makeup. She was detained for weeks and investigated for ideological corruption. The magazines were confiscated and burned. She was eventually released but placed under surveillance. Fashion magazines showing South Korean culture and prosperity were treated as subversive propaganda. The regime cannot allow citizens to see that South Koreans are fashionable, prosperous, and living modern lives, while North Koreans wear the same limited clothing styles for decades. 30. In 2018, customs officials seized a tourist's power bank, portable phone charger, because it had Samsung brand name on it. Samsung is a South Korean company, and South Korean brands are prohibited in North Korea. The tourist tried to explain that Samsung products are sold globally and aren't political. North Korean customs didn't care. South Korean brand means automatic confiscation. The power bank was seized, and the tourist was given a warning lecture about respecting North Korean sensitivities. A portable phone charger was confiscated, not for being dangerous, but for having the wrong company logo. The regime extends its South Korean product ban to electronics made by South Korean companies, even when sold globally as standard consumer goods. The logo of a South Korean company was sufficient to classify a phone charger as contraband. 31. In 2013, border guards arrested a man caught with photographs of his relatives in South Korea. The man had received the photos from relatives during a rare approved family reunion between North and South Korean families separated by the war. He was supposed to return the photos but had secretly kept copies. Border guards discovered the photos during a random search. Possessing photographs of South Korean relatives is considered evidence of divided loyalty to the regime. The man was arrested and sent to a labor camp. The photos were confiscated and destroyed. His crime was keeping family photos showing that his relatives in South Korea were well-fed, well-dressed, and living in prosperity. The regime cannot allow North Koreans to see photographic proof that their separated family members live better under South Korean capitalism than they do under North Korean communism. 32. In 2016, a defector attempting to escape was caught carrying a small Bible hidden in her shoe. She was Christian and had been secretly practicing her faith despite North Korea's ban on religion. She had hoped to bring the Bible with her to freedom as her most precious possession. Border guards discovered the Bible during a search that required removing shoes. The woman was arrested and sent to a political prison camp where religious prisoners face the harshest treatment. The Bible was confiscated and destroyed. Her possession of religious text was considered more serious than regular crimes because it demonstrated loyalty to God rather than the Kim family. North Korea's personality cult around the Kims cannot tolerate citizens worshiping any other entity. The small Bible in her shoe led to imprisonment in conditions likely to kill her within a year. 33. In 2019, customs at Pyongyang airport detained a Chinese businessman because his laptop wallpaper showed the Shanghai skyline. North Korean authorities considered the image problematic because it showed modern Chinese prosperity and development that contrasts with North Korea's comparatively backward infrastructure. The businessman was questioned about whether the wallpaper was meant to mock North Korea or spread discontent. The laptop was confiscated for several days while authorities examined its contents. It was returned only after the wallpaper was changed to something authorities approved. A photograph of Chinese skyscrapers as laptop wallpaper was treated as potential propaganda showing economic development North Korea lacks. The regime is so insecure about its failures that even images of Allied China's modern cities are seen as implicit criticism requiring investigation and removal. 34. In 2014, border guards arrested a woman caught with aspirin bottles that had printed instructions in English. North Korea prohibits medicine labels in English because English is considered the language of the enemy, America. The woman had received the aspirin from relatives in China and needed it for chronic headaches. Border guards confiscated the aspirin despite her medical need. The English language instructions made it contraband, even though it was ordinary pain reliever. The woman was detained and interrogated about her access to foreign medicine and her loyalty to the regime. She was released after several days but without her medicine. Her headaches continued untreated because the regime deemed English language medical labels more problematic than her untreated health condition. Medical necessity was subordinated to language paranoia. 35. In 2017, customs seized a shipment of toothpaste from China because the packaging showed a smiling family with healthy white teeth. North Korean authorities considered the imagery to be subtle propaganda, suggesting Chinese dental products are superior to North Korean ones. The packaging showed ordinary commercial imagery, a happy family, but that was enough to classify it as ideologically problematic. The entire toothpaste shipment was confiscated despite North Korea's shortage of dental hygiene products. The smuggler was arrested for importing goods with suspicious imagery. North Koreans continued suffering dental health problems because toothpaste packaging showed people with healthy teeth, implying better results than North Korean products provide. The regime's insecurity about product quality means even toothpaste packaging becomes propaganda requiring seizure. 36. In 2015, a man attempting to defect was caught at the border carrying soil from his family's ancestral land in North Korea. He had collected the soil to bring with him, hoping to honor his ancestors even after escaping. Border guards discovered the soil-filled container during search. They treated it as attempted theft of state property. Everything in North Korea technically belongs to the state, including the soil. The man was arrested and charged with stealing state property. He was sent to a labor camp and the soil was confiscated. His attempt to keep a connection to his homeland through soil led to imprisonment. The regime's control is so absolute that even dirt becomes state property that cannot be removed from the country. The man's sentimental desire to bring ancestral soil was criminalized as theft, revealing that North Koreans don't even own the ground beneath their feet. 37. In 2018, border guards arrested a woman returning from China because she had a USB drive containing Korean language translated TED Talks. The woman had been exposed to TED Talks in China and had collected them for educational purposes. The talks covered science, technology, innovation, and motivation, standard educational content available worldwide. North Korean authorities considered them ideologically dangerous because they presented ideas about innovation, individual achievement, and progress that contradicted state propaganda about the Kim regime being the source of all knowledge and advancement. The woman was arrested and the USB confiscated. She was investigated for ideological corruption and intent to spread enemy propaganda. Educational talks about science and innovation were treated as dangerous because they came from outside North Korea. and suggested progress happens through individual creativity rather than Kim family leadership. 38. In 2013, customs at Pyongyang Airport confiscated a tourist's guidebook to North Korea published by a Western company. The tourist had brought the guidebook to navigate his approved tour. North Korean authorities objected to Western published guides because they contain historical context, human rights information, and safety warnings that contradict state propaganda. The guidebook was seized and destroyed. The tourist was lectured about using only North Korean-approved information sources. The confiscated guidebook contained practical travel information, but also mentioned North Korea's famines, prison camps, and human rights record. The regime cannot allow even tourist guidebooks that acknowledge reality. The tourist had to navigate North Korea without his guidebook because it contained too much truth. 39. In 2016, a Chinese trader was detained because border guards found he was carrying empty South Korean instant noodle packages, intending to repackage Chinese noodles in them to sell at higher prices in North Korean black markets. The empty packages themselves, just printed cardboard and plastic, were enough for arrest. South Korean product packaging is forbidden regardless of actual contents. The trader was arrested for possessing enemy propaganda materials. The empty packages were seized and destroyed. North Korean black market demand for South Korean products is so high that even fake packaging was valuable, but possessing it was criminal. The regime treats even empty South Korean product wrappers as dangerous because they carry South Korean brand names and imagery showing South Korean culture and quality that North Korean products can't match. 40. In 2019, border guards arrested a man attempting to defect because he had downloaded weather forecasts for Seoul onto his phone. The man had been planning his defection route and wanted to know Seoul's weather for when he arrived. Border guards caught him at the border and searched his phone. The Seoul weather forecast downloads were used as evidence of intent to defect and ideological corruption. He was mentally prepared to live in South Korea. The man was sent to a political prison camp and his phone was seized. Weather forecast information for a foreign city, freely available data worldwide, was treated as evidence of treason. The regime criminalizes even preparatory research for defection, treating weather information as evidence justifying harsh punishment. 41. In 2014, customs seized a shipment of pencils from China because they had cartoon characters on them that were popular in South Korean children's culture. The pencils were standard school supplies decorated with cartoon imagery. But the cartoon characters were associated with South Korean children's entertainment, making the pencils problematic. The entire shipment was confiscated despite North Korean students having inadequate school supplies. The pencils were destroyed, and the smuggler was arrested for importing culturally subversive materials. North Korean children remained without adequate writing implements because available pencils had the wrong cartoon characters on them. The regime's control extends to which cartoon characters can appear on children's school supplies, with South Korean cultural imagery strictly forbidden even on pencils. 42. In 2017, a woman was arrested at the border because she had a notebook where she'd written down English words and phrases she wanted to learn. North Korea teaches limited English in schools under strict state curriculum. The woman had been secretly learning English beyond the approved curriculum using materials from China. She had compiled a personal study notebook with vocabulary about travel, daily life, and conversation, standard language learning material. Border guards found the notebook during a search and treated it as evidence of intent to defect. Learning English beyond state-approved curriculum suggests its desire to leave North Korea and communicate in the outside world. The woman was detained and investigated for ideological corruption. Her notebook was confiscated. A student's language learning notes were treated as evidence of disloyalty. The regime fears English language skills because they enable communication with the outside world and access to foreign information. 43. In 2015, customs officials at the Chinese border seized a calculator because it was solar-powered and had Casio brand name on it. North Korea has complicated relationship with foreign technology, especially Japanese brands. The solar-powered calculator was considered problematic, both for showing Japanese technological advancement and for being unnecessarily advanced compared to battery-powered North Korean calculators. The trader carrying it was detained and questioned about whether the calculator was intended to show off Japanese superiority to North Koreans. The calculator was confiscated permanently. A basic calculation device was seized not for being dangerous, but for representing foreign technological quality. The regime's insecurity about North Korea's technological backwardness means even calculators become ideological threats if they're too advanced or too well made. 44. In 2018, border guards arrested a man attempting to bring news clippings about North Korea from foreign newspapers into the country. The man was a party official who had been abroad on approved business and had collected newspaper articles mentioning North Korea out of curiosity. The articles were international news coverage discussing North Korea's nuclear program, sanctions, and diplomatic relations. Factual reporting, not propaganda. North Korean authorities considered the articles enemy propaganda regardless of factual content. The man was arrested despite his party position. The newspaper clippings were confiscated and burned. His career was destroyed for possessing foreign news coverage about his own country. The regime cannot allow citizens to read how the outside world views North Korea because that external perspective contradicts state propaganda. Even party officials aren't trusted with foreign news articles. 45. And finally, in 2013, border guards at the Tumen River caught a teenage boy attempting to defect while carrying a photograph of his deceased mother. His mother had died during North Korea's famine years, and the photo was his only remaining connection to her. Border guards discovered the photo during his capture. They confiscated it as his personal property that belonged to the state. The boy begged to keep his mother's photograph, his last remaining family possession. Guards refused and added time to his sentence for arguing with them. He was sent to a youth labor camp where defectors report he likely died from the harsh conditions. The photograph was kept as evidence of his defection attempt. His mother's photograph, a teenage boy's treasured connection to his dead parent, was seized as state property. The regime's cruelty extends even to confiscating precious personal items from captured defectors. The boy's attempt to carry his mother's memory into freedom led to his imprisonment and the permanent loss of her photograph. North Korea's border seizures reveal a government that considers chocolate, Bible verses, weather forecasts, and mothers' photographs equally dangerous threats to their control, treating their own citizens' basic human desires as contraband, requiring punishment. The brutal truth about North Korean border seizures is that they reveal a regime terrified of its own people having choices, information, or connections to the outside world. Most governments seize actual contraband like weapons, drugs, or stolen goods. North Korea seizes chocolate bars, television shows, and family photographs because information about the outside world is their most dangerous threat. These seizures aren't about customs enforcement or security. They're about absolute information control. When weather forecasts, calculator brands, and toothpaste packaging become criminal contraband, you're looking at a government that knows it survives only through complete isolation of its citizens from reality. The real contraband is the truth. Every USB drive, magazine, Bible, food wrapper, or phone call represents the possibility that North Koreans might learn their government has lied to them about everything, that the world isn't trying to destroy them, that they aren't living in paradise, and that freedom exists just across the border if they're willing to risk everything to reach it. Subscribe if you want to remember that information access, entertainment choices, and personal property are human rights, not privileges to be granted by governments. And remember that regimes this afraid of chocolate bars, TV shows, and family photos are regimes that know they can't survive truth or freedom?